Zia was an Islamist. He began a process of Islamicizing Pakistan.
General Zia said, "We are the true defenders. Israel without Judaism would collapse. Pakistan without Islam would collapse."
He imposed Sharia law.
Sharia is a divine, utopian, heavenly code of conduct. Sharia on earth means whatever the leader says Sharia means. But of course, the area in which they had the most devastation was in women's rights, what's often referred to as the hudud laws. The punishment for these crimes is actually mandated by the Quran.
There was this notorious law under which if a woman was raped, she had to produce 4 male witnesses to the penetration. If she couldn't produce that, then she would go to jail for sex outside marriage, which was illegal.
Public hangings, public floggings.
Harsh though they may seem to us, all those punishments are perfectly acceptable under Islamic law.
People are not allowed to travel. People are not allowed to voice their own opinions.
I believe in freedom of thought, freedom of expression.
People are not allowed to voice their ideas. They're not allowed to do anything at all.
It is freedom with responsibility, not freedom for the sake of freedom or free for all.
What I am sitting and doing right now in this drawing room is a crime under martial law regulation.
Then he had this extraordinary break in his favor. The Soviets invaded Afghanistan.
Pakistan was important from the very beginning. For strategic reasons, you only have to look at a map.
I think the administration thought that the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan was a major threat to the United States, that the Soviet Union would dominate the northern part of the Persian Gulf, it would threaten Western oil supplies, and the communists would have scored a major victory.
The main task became defeat the Russians, whatever the cost. And that made this squalid dictator into a plucky fighter for freedom. Brzezinski actually went to the Afghan border.
But that land over there is yours. You'll go back to it one day because your fight will prevail and you'll have your homes and your mosques back again because your cause is right and God is on your side.
A lot of these religious primers, which were teaching kids in the madrasas, you know, all the jihadi rhetoric, Kaf, the letter K, Kaf is for Kalashnikov. All these textbooks were specially printed by the University of Nebraska. Reagan introduced these guys to the press corps once and said, "These are the equivalents of our founding fathers." And some of us watching at the time was sort of joking, which one is Washington? Which one is Jefferson? You know, where's Benjamin Franklin among them?
The two boys, Murtaza and Shanawaz, were very disillusioned and they went to Afghanistan.
Shanawaz was the youngest of the 4 kids. They all adored him so much, such a nice, kind kid.
He was always smiling. Benazir always talked about him being incredibly handsome and a great charmer. He wasn't as intense and serious as Murtaza was.
Mir had the arrogance of the man of the family. He needed to feel he was doing something, so there was a lot of sort of talk.
The underground resistance, if you're shot off the street, then you're going to go underneath and blow the hell out of the place. So there's going to be a lot of trouble.
They were trying to build a group from outside the country to overthrow the government of Zia.
There's been a dramatic development in the Damascus hijack today.
The Pakistan government has been claiming that the man behind the hijacking is the eldest son of Pakistan's former president, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. Murtaza vowed to avenge their father's death.
The hijacking of the PIA airliner took place, then it had become very, very difficult.
Has Murtaza crossed the line between political activity in exile and terrorism? The Pakistan government says he has.
Benazir's brothers were branded as terrorists.
In the end, the Pakistan government capitulated to the hijackers, agreeing to swap the political prisoners for the hostages aboard the PIA plane.
Benazir was tarred with connection to those terrorist brothers. Zia threw her into a Class C cell, the desert of sin. Class C are the lowest quality cells that there are.
I walked up and down and up and down and up and down. What the hell is there to do when you're locked up in solitary confinement?
She had not talked to anyone for several years. When I went to visit her, she could not talk. She would write on a piece of paper whatever she wanted to tell me because her jaws had locked.
It would be so hard, I can't tell you. And my ear is hurting me.
She had some ear complaint and they called a doctor. They said, you're not well and we're going to give you medicine. But the medicine they were giving her, I think, were tranquilizers because my mother noticed she was becoming like a zombie.
I think his basic thought was that he could kill her.
By the time the Afghan war was in full swing, Zia knew that the U.S. couldn't do without him.
The Reagan administration simply let the Pakistani dictator decide how billions of U.S. dollars would be used to fight the Soviets. And Zia gave them to the most extreme Islamic groups.
That is the period when Pakistan's Inter-Services Intelligence, ISI, became a powerful octopus-like agency with a finger in every sphere of public life in the country. Massive spying apparatus, massive budget.
The ISI is the NSA, the CIA, and the Pentagon all rolled into a single body. It is, in some sense, a shadow military force.
The ISI would use enormous funds to actually create organizations which they armed and then used in Afghanistan.
The Mujahideen is the term that we use to describe the diverse groups of militants and fighters, some Afghan, but many from outside of Afghanistan, fighters all over the world who gathered to repel the Soviet invasion.
Osama bin Laden was a part of that movement. He was a particularly well-resourced and effective militia leader.
We thought that defeating the Soviet Union was so important that we didn't care that we were actually supporting Osama bin Laden and people who were his allies.
As far as Pakistan was concerned, it destroyed the social fabric of that country because you had armed groups backed by the military regime running wild in the country. Another of the sort of numerous ironies, the Americans got rid of Bhutto because of the nuclear bomb. Then General Zia, their man, is in power and uses the fact that he's become absolutely necessary for the United States to fight the war in Afghanistan to basically build the bomb. And that is what he did.
I say that it is the right of any developing country to acquire the modern technology. And amongst the modern technology is the nuclear technology. Nuclear technology for peaceful purposes.
The notion that American military intelligence didn't know about it is just nonsense. They knew what was going on very well. It was a price they were prepared to pay.
In December of 1982, General Zia came to Washington, and as part of his visit, he had a lunch with the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. The only senator who was on time was Pell, his biggest critic. In the very first question, Pell handed him a letter about political prisoners. Benazir was the first name on the list, and he raised Benazir's case, described her conditions of imprisonment. Zia responded by saying, "Oh no, that's not right, Senator. She's now under house arrest, and she lives in a more comfortable house than any of your senators."
You know, our family home in Larkana, they declared it's a sub-jail, so it wasn't like you could come and go as you wished. So I was always going to Home Secretary's office and this one's office and that one's office, begging, can I go and see them?
She was released from prison only because she was in terrible physical shape. She was in danger of dying, and that's why Zia al-Haq let her out. I take it he didn't want to be held accountable for more Bhutto blood, and she went to London.
I went to the airport and there was a sea of people.
I asked her this afternoon if in the eyes of President Zia, she was now conveniently out of the way.
We have not left Pakistan. We have not come out as political refugees or sought political asylum. We are Pakistanis and we'll go back to Pakistan. That's our homeland. That's where we live and that's where we'll die.
She had to restore her health in terms of leading, a more measured life. And there were some happy times for her.
The Bhutto family would go to the south of France on holiday.
Yeah, they were all there. The two brothers, their wives were there. Nusrat was there. Nazir was there. Sanam was there. And they had met that evening or that dinner they had had together. And later the next morning they find Shahnawaz dead. Apparently somebody had poisoned him.
He died in great pain over several hours, with her sister-in-law doing nothing to come to his aid. It was a horrible experience for the family.
My heart was pounding. I didn't want to go inside. I looked, and he was lying on the carpet. His hand was outstretched, and he just looked like a sleeping animal. He looked so handsome. He said to me, he's dead. I said, no, try. He said, he's cold. He's dead for hours. And I shouted, you killed him, you killed him, you killed him. Without a shadow of doubt, I feel that he was most cruelly, heartlessly murdered. Well, we would like the French police to find out, but we think it took place within a political context.
Going back with his body, she saw the love and the devotion of the people, and she realized from that moment onwards she had to set in motion the next phase of her life, which was going back to resume an active career in politics.
My father had a vision of Pakistan as a democratic and progressive nation. My family is committed to his vision of Pakistan. We don't fear anything.
I said to her, you need to come to the United States. Persuade Americans that you're not a dangerous radical. She had a charm offensive.
Ambassador Peter Galbraith asked if we would have a small dinner party for a friend of his that was just getting out of prison. I said, oh, that's intriguing. That was really the first time I met her.
He had a sort of Washington salon, some members of Congress, a whole bunch of journalist friends, and she charmed everybody.
She was speaking quietly. Everyone would sort of lean forward because she was enrapturing.
She would say what she thought, and people would come out of meetings with her saying, my God, I can't believe that she said that. But it served her well because people began to trust her.
She also used her contacts in the Arab world. Libya, for instance, she had this ability to live in both worlds.
There was a groundswell of support that was building against the dictatorship. What was left of the civil society, what was left of the NGOs, all were banding together, demanding a reform.
Until the beginning of this year, General Zia outlawed all political opposition in Pakistan. But now, in a new political climate, the way may soon be clear to challenge him in an election. If that proves the case, then leading that challenge will be Benazir Bhutto.
I wanted to perform Umrah for my father. So this was something that I had wanted to. I didn't know whether I would live or die when I went back. And that's why I wanted to complete my intention.
She wasn't intimidated by generals, by dictators. She really thought she was on a holy mission to bring democracy back to the country.
In Pakistan, supporters of the opposition leader Benazir Bhutto are gathering to welcome her back, promising to overthrow the present leader, General Zia, and to test his claim that democracy has been restored.
She arrived in Pakistan, and suddenly there was a kind of electric shock that went through the body politic of the nation. And she really won the heart of millions of Pakistanis because she was seen as this young, almost frail girl taking on this brutal military dictator with all the authority and the power and the military backing him.
People who had been too scared or who hadn't felt like coming out when Bhutto was hanged